How's it going, everyone? I'm Big Jim. Welcome to Big Jim's Kitchen. This channel is dedicated to showing you how to do recipes I learned to create over the years. Some easy, some hard, some healthy, some not so healthy. Today's video, if you haven't already seen the thumbnail, is going to be smoked brisket. Now, when I was going around shopping for the brisket, I was looking online for the best possible price I could find because brisket is sometimes a little pricey per pound. I looked up Walmart, I looked up Kroger, I looked up Market Basket, I looked up Sam's Club, I looked up Costco. Best price I was able to find was $3.76 a pound from Walmart neighborhood grocery store. So keep that in mind. Now, the way we're going to do this is really simple. There's very few ingredients involved, but the biggest thing with a smoked brisket that not all of you are going to have because they get kind of pricey sometimes is a smoker. I'm using a Traeger pit boss. I think it's Traeger. I will correct myself in post-production if I'm not correct, but it's a digital smoker. It takes wood pellets and it works like a charm. Oh, and on a side note, today's video is sponsored by absolutely no one. Nobody likes me yet. But let's go ahead and get on with the ingredients now, shall we? Start with, like I said, this is going to be super simple, so we're going to be using very few ingredients. Salt and pepper, pretty much it. You're going to want some fine ground pepper. You're going to want a little bit of coarse pepper. You're going to want some salt. I don't really use iodized salt. I like to use either sea salt or Himalayan pink salt simply because it's more healthy, supposedly. We're going to utilize apple juice, and you might want to get a sprayer gun like this from your local hardware store. You can probably pick them up for $3 or $4. Reason being is every hour or so, when we're actually doing the smoking, so it doesn't get too dry, even though you should have a bowl of water in your smoker to keep it nice and moist. You're going to be spritzing this whole thing with some apple juice every hour until this thing gets to about 165 degrees. Then we're going to wrap it up. Let it cook until it gets to about 200, 210 degrees. So, without further ado, let's get cooking. All right, now, first thing we're going to be doing with this is we're going to be trimming off some of the fat. You're going to want to have some fat on here because it's going to render and it's going to just, melt all over the place and it's going to help make it delicious. But you don't want too much of it because it'll just get everywhere. So we're going to trim off a little bit of the fat. You're going to see some of the fat is going to be relatively hard, like this. And on the other side, you're going to see a whole lot more fat. And this one's a big one. It's like 16, 17 pounds. You're going to get a whole bunch of fat on this side. To trim some of it down. One thing I forgot to mention, if you're going to be smoking a brisket, anticipate it taking all day long. Brisket is full of, I think it's collagen or something like that. Basically, it makes it so that the beef is really tough, but if you cook it low and slow, it'll break that collagen down and it'll make it super nice and tender. So low and slow is the way to go. I didn't know it. So let's go ahead and start trimming this, getting rid of some of the fat. I'll do it, start from this side. I got this hand dirty. Oh well. Then afterwards, they'll go ahead and season her up. So, some of the looser fat, we'll get some of the harder fat. Trim off as much as you want, just try not to get into the meat. A bigger knife. I'd say that's about good enough. Let's go ahead and start seasoning it. All right, now that we've finished trimming the brisket, let's go ahead and start seasoning it. What I like to do first is go ahead and do a layer of salt on both sides. Reason being is to give the salt a chance to be absorbed into the beef. So put in as much salt or as little salt as you want. I like using a rubber glove, that way the hand doesn't get too dirty, obviously. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a layer of the fine pepper. That way it coats on here a lot better. And then we're going to top it off with the hard ground pepper. I should say the coarse pepper. So let's flip this back over to the side that's given a chance for the pepper to absorb. Now, just sprinkle this all around. One thing you're going to notice when you're doing this is you're going to want a good bark on your brisket. The bark is going to be a combination of the salt, the pepper, and the smoke from your smoker. They bark obviously like tree bark, not dog bark. Woof woof. All right, that's enough of the fine ground pepper. Now let's go ahead and put in some coarse. You know what? I take that back. That was coarse. Wow, I'm an idiot. Put coarse in here first, and I did not. I let the fine pepper in here, so I did it backwards. So whenever you're doing this, put in this stuff first, and then the coarse pepper. So there we go. My family's doing a good job of blowing all over the place. And I'm probably gonna have a nice sneezing fit. There we go. Now finally, you're gonna go ahead and flip it over and do the exact same thing, except in, not the exact same thing, we're gonna do the fine ground pepper first, and of course. And one thing, you're gonna store it like this because when you're smoking it, you're gonna wanna do it fat side up. So that when the fat renders, it just melts all over the place, as opposed to just going straight down. And once you have that done, that's pretty much it. You're gonna cover this with tin foil or use press and seal, put it in your fridge overnight, and then if you want to eat your brisket around 7 or 8, you're going to start really early in the morning, because at 250 degrees, a brisket like this is going to take roughly between 10 to 12 hours to smoke. Then afterwards, you're going to want to keep it covered, lay it out, and let it cool down for an hour, just to let it finish. So, wrap this up and toss it in the fridge overnight and start smoking. It is now the morning, and it's time to get this Pit Boss Pro Series smoker prepped. Ready to go. Already having it start to preheat to 225 degrees. The pellets I'm going to be using are these Pit Boss Competition Blend Hickory, Cherry, Maple, and Oak hardwood pellets. The reason why I'm using these is because I went shopping around for pellets. I went to Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, HEB, Kroger, Market Basket, Sam's Club, and surprisingly enough, the absolute best price I found for these hardwood pellets was Costco. Got this 40-pound bag for about 17 bucks, which is about half the price of everywhere else. They were selling 20-pound bags for roughly 20 bucks, 17 and 20 bucks. So this is the best deal. I don't know if Costco has that deal everywhere, but yep, that's what I'm going to be using. So I'm going to go ahead and double check and shove the meat probe into the brisket and get her shoved in here and get the smoking done. Alrighty, so they say that online the brisket is going to lose roughly half of its weight during the smoking process, so I'm going to test that theory. First, I'm going to step on the scale and find out how much I weigh. About 323.4. Now I'm going to pick up the brisket and do the exact same thing, find out where we're at. So 338.6. Do the math in your head. We'll come back afterwards and see how much it weighs after it's done smoking. Brisket's been marinating overnight. Actually, a couple of days ago, since there's a gap in the production process. Take a look. Looks delicious. So the next process in this is going to be transferring that to this grate and then shoving this meat probe into the thickest part. Now we're going to go ahead and place the brisket on the smoking grill. And I'd say this is the thickest side. And what you're going to want to do now is basically find the meatiest part, which is roughly in here, the thickest. And then shove that meat probe in as dead center as you can. And now, you can go ahead and toss it in the smoker. All right, we've got this thing semi-preheated, but before we go ahead and put in the brisket, you're gonna wanna make sure you have a good amount of water in here so the place doesn't get too dry. Now, we'll go ahead and slide this brisket in. And close the door and make sure that the latches don't get caught up on this. Then go ahead and plug in your meat probe into the smoker. Now every hour we'll come back and we'll spritz it with some apple juice. It's been roughly an hour, so we're going to go ahead and give this its first spritz in. So make sure you have it correctly in a nice spray and apple juice. Yum, yum, yum. And just give it several good squirts. Don't want to soak it too much because you don't want the salt and pepper to fall off, but do that. And you're good for the next hour. Now, a couple of things. One, I double checked what I said last time about what makes the brisket so tough, that being collagen. I was right on collagen. I double checked that, looked it up. I was thinking there's a collagen and keratin, but no, keratin is what your nails and hair are made out of. So, for the next part of this video, I'm going to let you know that I've been spritzing it every hour, so I don't record it every single time I do that because it's going to get monotonous. But when we come back, it's going to be when the internal temperature has reached about 165 degrees, and we're going to go ahead and transfer the brisket to a different way of, I should say wrapping it, because you're supposed to wrap it in either some butcher paper or some tin foil, but I find it's actually easier is go ahead and encase it in a tray and then cover that with tin foil, because all you're doing is covering it so it doesn't get any more smoke, but you're still keeping it in there to cook. And so what I'm going to use is basically the same tray as I was using before when that was marinating in the salt and pepper. So yeah, next time we'll come back and we'll go ahead and wrap that up and put it back in for the next part. Okay, so now we're back, roughly about 6 hours later. I had to increase the temperature to 250 because this thing was taking forever, but we've reached our goal temperature of 165 degrees on the inside. So now let's go ahead and take it out. Take a look at this bark. Ooh, boy, does that look delicious. Let me get out of the sun so you can see it better. That's gonna be yummy. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give it one final spritz. Then I'm gonna go ahead and pick it up and put it in this tray, wrap it up in this Reynolds wrap, and then put it right back in, and maybe lower the temperature back down to 225 since it's getting past the meat stall, which the meat stall, for those of you that are not familiar with that, is the evaporation from the meat cools it to a point that it doesn't heat up for a bit. It's kind of like the way your sweat works. Helps to cool you off. But now we're past that. And after I put it back in here, I will go ahead and keep cooking it until it reaches an internal temperature between 200 to 210 degrees. And right before I go ahead and pull it out of the smoker, the brisket, I mean, get your minds out of the gutter. Go do a quick plug for Kitchen Perfection. These silicone gloves work really well for picking up hot meat and making it so that you don't burn your hands. And these are super easy to clean off, but when you get wet in the water and stuff, it gets super slick. But you go ahead and pick it up, unplug it, and bring it in here. I'll put this meat probe a little further in if I... Actually, it looks like that works. It's not sticking out too far. So, let me close this up real quick so it doesn't lose too much heat. Let's wrap this sucker up. Slightly breezy out here, so bear with me. Good to go. Washing this back in there. It's already getting hot. Should have put my gloves back on. Also, make sure your little water reservoir still has a decent amount of water in there. I'm going to go ahead and refill it after I turn this off. So once we get to this point, we're pretty much done until the internal temperature gets to between 200 to 210 degrees. Alrighty, now we are 13 hours later, and I had to increase the temperature over time actually to 300 degrees because this thing was taking forever to cook. But we finally got to our temperature range between 200 and 210 degrees. So we are going to go ahead and pull this out and going to go ahead and weigh it on the scale, same as earlier, to see how much it actually shrunk during the smoking process. And then later on we will maybe do a taste test, but this brisket is actually being smoked for a birthday party that we have going on tomorrow, so might have to wait till then to do the taste test. Alright, as we did before, we're going to go ahead and do the scale weigh. Now, I am not going to use the exact same number as I used this morning because guess what? Over the day, you eat stuff, you drink stuff, your weight is going to fluctuate. So, let's get my weight at the end of the day. And I'm probably going to be a lot heavier, but oh well. So, My current weight is 326.2. Now, we're going to do this with the brisket that's fully cooked. Now, there's going to be some juices in this pan that are going to add to the weight, but I'm not going to count that. Let's just see how much weight we lost, and after I compare these numbers with the numbers before, we can see just I should say we can tell how much this reduced over the time, at least before we put it into the pan for the rest of the smoking. So, grabbing this brisket, and now I'm stepping on the scale. Granted, it has maybe barely a little bit of weight with the meat probe, but 337.4 pounds. So we will do the math on that later. And in the meantime, we will go ahead and take a quick peek as to how this looks. Because I'm going to be putting this in the refrigerator overnight. Ooh boy, look at that! Look at that bark. That salt and pepper, plus all the smoke added. That looks good. You can definitely see around it. You can see all the juice from the meat, so that definitely add to the weight. But yeah, we'll figure out what that weight is later. But tomorrow we shall have this. We'll do a taste test after we put the oven on reheat for a little bit of while. But yeah, it looks delicious. Just because I'm about to pull the meat probe out, I want to get a full look at this thing in all its glory. This thing is pretty. And it's probably very delicious. And as promised, here is the party that we're having today, and I made the brisket for. Everyone go yay! Yay! And now, here is the rest of the brisket, all nice and cut up. So tell me, how is it?
It's good. Fire. Fire. Good shit, man. They make this like a baby mama's.
Really good. Nice smoke to it, real tender. Right? Nice and beautiful season.
Man, all you need is a clover syrup top to make it spicier. That's all.
It's good. It's tender and it's juicy. It's good.
That's very brown.
Oh,
Remember to like and subscribe.